Next thing that we would like to look at is how to access. So let's say accessing data frame objects. Right, how do you access data frame objects? So there are several ways to basically access the columns stored in the data frame objects. One is by using the $ and the name of the column, right? Another way is to use the square bracket with the index of the column after the comma. This we have already have this done in our previous tutorial. If you can recall, when we were dealing with the matrices, we will look at how to access some of these column variables, right, by making use of the square bracket and the $. So if you have watched that video, you should be good with this one. You should be able to deal with this one. So let's take an example. For instance, let's call it data, right? So assuming we are interested in the variable age, right? So let's say we use the $. Since we have already given a name to it, once we use the $, it gives us the options to choose that kind of variable that we are interested in. So here we want age. So once we do this, we run this, we have access to all these values in the object, right? So another way to do this is to make use of the square bracket, right? So data, we know that the variable age is in the 4th column, so we just use (4), right, to get the same information. So we are good to go, right? So now what if we want to, let's say, select some columns, right? As we want to select the first to the 3rd column of the data frame or the data set. So data, so I want to select the first to 3rd columns of the data frame, right? So we have to use a comma 1, 2, 3, right? So basically for all rows we need a first to the 3rd column, right? So let's run this. So here we are. So we don't have the 4th column, right? We just have the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd columns, right? You can also use the container function, right, to choose specific columns. So assuming we are interested in only the 1st and 3rd column. So here I'm using the container function, the C function, to get access to specific columns. So once I run this, I'll only have access to the 1st and 3rd column, right? So that's basically how this also works. Now assuming we want to access the 1st and 2nd row of the 2nd column, let's say we want to access the 1st and 2nd row of the 3rd column, right? Third column. How do we do this? So still I can call my data, right? I need the 1st and 2nd, so that's 1 to 2, right? And I need only the 3rd column for this. So once I do this, it just gives me the 1st and the 2nd observation of the 3rd column, right? So I think we are good to go. Another thing that we can also do in order to have access to the data objects is make use of the attach function. So once you use the attach function, it basically helps you to have direct use of the variables. So let's attach data. First of all, if I call the data, let's say age, right, I can have access to it, right, because I've already given a name to it. But once you use the attach function, right, it basically helps you to have or make direct use of these variables. That's one important use of the attach function. It helps you to make direct use of the variables, right? So once maybe you are interested in any index, you just have to, maybe this age you are interested in the third index, you just have to specify it, and it gives you that the third index is 27, right? That the third observation is of age 27, right? So let's look at one more thing. How do we delete? So basically I want to know how to, let's say, delete some columns. So I don't want to delete let's say I want to delete the first and third column, right? So what we have here, let me copy this. So now I want to delete it, so I have to make use of the minus function, right? Once I do this, it's going to delete the first and the third column. First of all, this is how our data looks like, right? So we just want to now delete the first and the third, so we will left with only height and age. Let's see how this works. So here we go. Another way to do this is to just, since you have attached it, you can just make use of the names, right? So you just need to select height, and age, right? So once you do this, you get the same result. Okay, so this is basically how to access some data frame objects in R.